Good evening and welcome to the Upset Podcast. Tonight we're talking about building a brand or building the kingdom. Coming up next. All right. Once again, welcome back to the Upset Podcast. Thank you for joining us on this lovely Sunday. And when I say us, guess who I'm talking about?
The village people.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Thanks for tuning in. Of course, you know what to do. Say hello to us in the
I'm
comments.
so glad to see all the peeps.
Yeah, we're happy to see you.
A month of Sundays.
I know, right?
Eat your righteousness.
Okay, am I still on the show? I don't know. Did I get canceled?
Yes.
Good to have you back, sis. Good to have you back.
It's good to be back.
Definitely a busy one, a busy bee.
Don't let me call you a bee.
Busy bee.
It was some ease behind the beat. It was some
Uh-huh.
ease.
We have to be together. Yeah, busy bee. Not seeing you there. Yes, what's hi? Hey Mary, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. So yesterday I wanted to shout out those in the Delaware Valley that came to our first town hall. We're in town hall season at Allegheny East, and so Delaware Valley was
Pretty good.
up first at the Pine Forge Church. So it was great to see people come out, I should say. Hello, voice of reason from Philly. Oh, we can't wait to hear what you have to say, voice of reason.
Thinking pretty good of himself there, isn't he? The voice of reason.
Hello, Mike Williams. Thanks for being here. Yeah, it was cool. I think this is the first time I've been to a town hall.
Really?
I think so.
It's been a long time though since we did it. So
Yeah. It was interesting.
You ever been to the ones in the past that was mandatory for all employees?
Like which ones? I'm like, was it
yeah.
called something else?
I'm just playing.
No, I was like, why don't I remember doing town halls? But this is something that we're required to do based on policy. So I'm glad that we're going to be able to get around. The next one is this week. So those in the Washington metro area, head on to Bladensburg. That's next Saturday evening. We'll meet you there. And I did get a chance to greet some of our viewers. Some of them came and said hello, so that was nice. So I look forward to seeing those in the metro area as well.
What kind of topics did you cover at the town hall meeting?
So, the thing about the town hall in each area is that the area sets the agenda for their portion.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
So, of course, we start off with administration, president laying out the overview of the strategic plan for the next few years. But then the rest of it is dedicated to answering questions from the area. So Delaware Valley decided to have groups who kind of put their questions together, and they were presented in that way. So I'm interested to see how each area will, decide how they present. But I mean, topics range from anything from church building ownership to what else or something. Marlene, you were there. I thought it was great dialogue. I love hearing from people. Like, I hate sitting in a room and thinking about what do you think the people are thinking. I'd rather just ask the people, what are you thinking? And then get the feedback.
A lot was on education. There were lots of comments on
youth,
and then a lot of stuff on youth. Because the vision was to really bring about a young adult church, young adult ministries, really strengthen the young adult church, and there were many people that felt like, the young adults should stay with the older and learn from the older, and
It was interesting because you had both sides coming to the mic, so it was good to see that. I thought it was great.
18 to 35.
Yeah,
and they kept calling them kids, and I was so glad that
somebody said they are not
18 to 35. We're not children.
So somebody called them kids?
Yeah,
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, I think they look at them as being kids because they
Yeah.
kept saying that, you learn. And even though you do learn from the older, I mean, I saw absolutely no reason why young adults couldn't start their own church. And then someone says, why don't you listen to them? Listen to what they want, right? And I think that we miss that communication. We see them, we pass by, and we talk about everything else, but we don't talk about what they feel like they need.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a great discussion. There's sunshine. Is that you, Marlene? Do you know Connie Lewis? She said there's sunshine.
Is that to me, Connie?
No. Maybe we're all good. Hello, Marlene. Love and blessings to you too. Thanks for tuning in.
So I want to give a shout out. So last night at the Calvary Adventist School, they hosted something called Hymn Fest, where all the different churches in the area were invited, and without shutting the doors, we raised $20,000.
What?
That's excellent.
What?
Phenomenal. People came together. I mean, we made
20,000.
That's nothing.
That's excellent.
Nothing. But
Were the Potomac churches there?
every church in Virginia was invited.
I heard what Marlena just. I heard what Marlena just said.
That's not an answer to the question.
I heard what Marlena just asked.
No, I asked that because they used to come. The Hymn Fest was both
$20,000.
Yes.
Potomac churches must
All
have been there.
conferences were invited. All churches in the area were invited. Yes.
I wanted to see because that's how Hymn Fest got started with all of the churches. And I was wondering if it's happened again, post-COVID, because it's been a long time since we've done
Yes.
Hymn Fest.
It happened.
Great.
That is good.
So now that'll be an annual thing. Yeah, that's
that
great.
is great. Was it for the school or y'all doing other stuff?
For the school.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You remember those days, right, Tina?
Those days, yeah. My church is about 2 hours away, but yeah, I heard it was great. Praise God. Praise God.
Oh, wow.
You didn't go to support?
Oh, wow. I didn't get home till 1 o'clock in the morning there, Marlene.
Oh,
from my church, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that is wonderful.
Wow.
Oh, thank you.
We're busy, dude.
Thank you. Yeah. And so yesterday you guys remember I was telling you guys about April 5th and the marches that were going to take place in every state.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You guys saw?
They were massive.
Exactly.
I didn't see it.
Oh,
Yeah.
they were. I mean, New York looked like Godzilla was coming.
What city?
New York.
Did we do it in Philly? Hallie,
we did it in Philly.
Was a call in Philly, right? But it was on Saturday, wasn't it?
It was on Sabbath, yeah.
Yeah, because I really wanted to go and take some of my young adults. I said, oh, man, it's on Saturday.
We weren't supposed to go. They were saying we were supposed to sit it out so that the other people.
Who said that?
It's not our fight, right?
Yeah, that's what they're saying. They were saying.
Wait, who was the day?
Who said that?
So these are what a lot of Black leaders were saying in the Black community. They were saying they need to see others other than Black people.
I see.
So that it's, because when we get involved, they always try to make it a
Black thing.
Yeah, they're just being. But when they see other people opposing it, it has a louder voice. Or because they were like, we already did our, we did our part. So, it was interesting to see the turnout.
I mean, the New York crowd was just extraordinary. Oh, it looked like it to me, but major cities all over the country demonstrated that there's a level of anger and an outrage for the policies of this current administration across the board.
And what about Cory Booker? We haven't talked about that.
I was just about to say something about that.
Broke the record.
And he had good content. I mean, what was it Strummin or something from the 60s? Strom Thurmond,
yeah.
Reading the newspaper and stuff like that, to carry on the time. But Cory was saying some good stuff there, really. in support. And
Strom Thurmond was an inveterate segregationist,
right?
With a black daughter.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
With a black daughter.
Yeah.
So
that he was raising, or she was somewhere else.
No. He had her illicitly.
Yeah.
He didn't believe in integration in the streets, but he didn't mind it in the sheets. You see, and so you know he. That's one of those statements. Right after you said, you say, I really shouldn't have said that.
I was just thinking you were a rapper, dude. That's all I was thinking. Tally the rapper.
Yeah, he was on point. That's right.
Yeah, he was. Cory Booker. He needs credit for that.
Yeah. Hello, Rhonda. Thanks for joining us. Yeah. Hello, Kevin Jackson. Thanks for being here. That's right. We're a family. Upset Podcast family. That's what we are. Thanks for coming to the weekly family reunion. So
I see all these other podcasts starting.
Hey.
Whatever do you mean, Marlena? Please explain. Tell us some more.
The one that Dr. Tyler is in, and then education starting a podcast.
Wait. Which one am I?
You're doing the one with don't you do one with
Dr. Kinlock?
With Kinlock?
We started that in 2020. That's not new. That's 2020.
Old. Well, how often do you guys do yours?
We didn't see it. We didn't see it until after hours,
No, so we are not rebranding, but we're trying something new. So we should be up and running about another month.
A reboot. Right?
Yeah. That's a good word.
There's nothing wrong with the word brand.
Yeah. Oh, no, I wasn't running away from it.
Oh, yeah. Is that a nice segue into our topic?
A gentle shove into the topic? Yeah.
No.
Dr. Alberty said they were going to start a podcast. I guess it's
Yes. So,
everybody got a podcast. My mom was going to start a podcast.
This is why we are quitting, right?
Everybody.
We're branching off.
You get a podcast. Everybody gets a podcast.
People have things to say, and as long as
we have emboldened them.
Yeah, my next door neighbor literally has a podcast. Him and his friends, they do a podcast on sneakers and sports. Everybody has a podcast.
Yeah, they get a good response too.
I think everybody thinks that they have something to say, and about 90% of them are wrong, but they say it anyway.
They'll find out eventually, right?
But I learned that about though.
That comes from the government too. They got a lot to say, and it's wrong.
Well, here we go.
Okay. Yes. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We definitely hope, whenever we're live, we're always looking forward to interaction from our audience. So this is something that we definitely want you all to weigh in. Those who tuned in last week kind of heard a little bit of what led to us having, this is our topic today, which is building a brand or building the kingdom. And this is in references to ministers, pastors, developing their personal brand. And I think it's important for us to kind of like define and look at what does that really mean? Well, first of all, when we think about what is a brand, because I think you hear different connotations of what does it mean to have a brand. There are several different things, several different definitions, but there are a lot of things that show up as I looked at various definitions. But one of the things I wanted to do when we're looking at this definition is also to look at what it's not. So when we think about a personal brand, it's definitely being authentic. So who you are, obviously, it is very important that you're being true to who you are, and not pretending to be something that you're not, which I think we've seen individuals attempt that. It's about working in the name of your purpose, which means you have to have identified what your purpose is so that you can work in the name of it. And it's not neglecting to discover your purpose. In other words, just, this is what people are interested in. Let me just do it because that seems to be the most popular thing going on. 3, it's inspiring others to follow you. It says your story, but to follow whatever it is that you are putting out there to the world. But it's not just gaining followers to sell your product. So it's not like a little bait and hook. It is contributing something valuable to the world, right? But it's not self-promoting without giving back. Okay. It is getting intentional about your online presence, but it's not creating content without a strategy. And I liked this one because I feel like we're starting to see a lot of personal branding going on. And I think in some cases we're seeing these two columns intermingled. And then this is just one author's definition of personal branding. But I kind of want to ask you guys, when you hear brand, do any of these resonate with you, or do you have a different connotation when you think about a personal brand?
You know, I mean, because I know that I added to that conversation last week. I when I think of branding, I think of the marketing of my individual identity, and I emphasize the word marketing. I'm trying to sell or create a value of mine that is individual and distinct from, if I'm a preacher, from the gospel that I preach. Um, and I think churches do that too. I think, we say things like, "There's no place like this place, near this place, so this must be the place," which is trying to say my brand of fellowship and worship is better than Shiloh or Willow Grove or down in at GP's church. Yeah.
Churches.
Yeah. And so
no name churches. Yep, I get it.
Mount Calvary.
Mount Calvary New Life. That's right. Hampton.
Yeah. See, for the record, all of these folks pastored in Virginia, and I have not. So, but so I mean, I sense that there's a lot more of that now, especially exponentially since the pandemic, when all of us realized that, hey, look, you got to figure out how to get in front of a camera and talk to people who are not in the room with you. And so people began to start trying to figure out how to package themselves uniquely.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's another part of a brand. It also deals with how do you set yourself apart from other people who are doing the same thing. So when we think about, let's say, Michael Jordan, he definitely has a brand. Right?
Yeah.
Literally a brand of, as being one of the greatest basketball players of all time, but he also has products. He has a lot of things. So you hear MJ, it brings to mind a certain connotation. How does that translate to, say, a pastor with a brand?
I would say that there are some pastors who have a niche where when you hear their name, you think of one thing, and that's a part of their specialty. And so their brand is the go-to person for this topic. And so you may see them oftentimes traveling on the road, doing workshops, preaching, and talking about that one thing that they're known for until they fizzle off into the land of forgottenness and someone else is hot doing what they used to do. So we're familiar with branding in the pastoral space, but we haven't really talked about it as much as what it is.
Okay. And some people would listen to that GP and say, that's someone's giftedness. That's their area.
I was just thinking that. Yeah.
But is it their brand? Like, what distinguishes someone's giftedness from their brand? And I think
I sense that giftedness is something that you recognize you've been freely given, and that it doesn't belong to you, and therefore you have to be willing to give it. Whereas branding is proprietary, so that you can market it and sell it and benefit from the sale of it. And I mean, a gifted person can have a brand, as GP was saying, but the branding process itself is so that I have control over the gift for purposes of marketing and compensation, I sense.
All right. So when you say marketing, that means you are being able to profit from the gift outside of your standard pastoral ministry. Is that what you're saying?
Well, what about pastors who have their own business on the side because of further education in a particular place? And so they may advertise what one may say.
Watch yourself, Marlena.
They may advertise because there is a need for it, Dr. Tyler. There is a need for it. And so you brand so that, people will know that help is nearby. I mean, is that acceptable?
And that's a good question, because it makes me think about, like this. It makes me think about pastors as brands. So when you think about a pastor being a brand, are you thinking about them as branding their ministry as a pastor, or are you thinking about them as a person who happens to be a pastor, but also has another?
The Apostle Paul made tents and sold them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so you have a right to sell your services as an individual that you may have developed skill for or gone through training for. But when it comes to ministry, I am wondering if, and that's where the line gets a little thin and shaky. Do I have a right to sell my ministry? I mean, when you see somebody come and say, I've got a word from the Lord for you, and this is something that you need for your salvation. God's going to richly bless you. You send me $29.95. Now, when you get there, you're selling gospel, and I'm wondering if that is where the difference is, and
I think the difference is there. Like I said, if I may speak, like mental health is huge, right? And us as pastors, we don't do the counseling, but we send them to places. And so when there is a pastor who is a minister of the gospel, but he has something else on the side that can really help people professionally.
Keenan is smiling.
I didn't call any names, Dr. Tyler. I didn't say a word. I didn't say anything. Well, I'm for it. I mean, that kind of thing. I mean, I think that's a thin line. I mean, to me, that seems acceptable, right? But in defense of what you were saying, Tally, I agree with you. Buy this bottled water, Holy Ghost water, right? You put it on your body to bring healing. I agree. That's, to me, that's not acceptable, right? Because I know you're just making money giving me regular water, right? You're making money, So
and Marlena, I think I'm with you. I look at branding as like almost that's what you're known for. That's what you want people to know you for. Now, if you're gonna monetize that, I can see why some people will look down on that. But depending on how it's done, depending on how it's done, it may not be a bad thing. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about that, how it's done.
Let's talk about it.
Because, well, first of all, I saw that someone put in the chat that yes, a pastor should have a personal brand.
I was just looking up that.
That. So I did look it up, and Acts 10:38, the Apostle Peter proclaims that God anointed Jesus of Nazareth with the Holy Spirit and power.
I don't know. I love Pastor Jenkins. I don't see how that passage has anything to do with branding. If you clarify that.
I'm sorry, I didn't finish reading.
Okay.
As a result, Jesus went around doing good and healing those oppressed by the devil because God was with him. So I guess his brand, once he was given the Holy Spirit, he could go and do all of these things.
I'm not sure if I see where Jinx is going with that, but I'm not sure that's branding. That's service. Now, I mean, if you want to say that you get a reputation from doing good, I mean, we're all called to let our light shine so that people might be drawn to the God who gives us the gift. But when we think of branding, and I imagine the definition is the thing here, you think of branding, you're talking about having ownership of a service or an aspect of your service that you can then have proprietary rights to market. That's what I'm thinking of, proprietary rights to market an aspect of your service. And I'm not sure, Brother Pastor, if when Paul gets the Spirit and starts healing people, I don't sense that is a brand as much as it is just an aspect of service.
Or his reputation. I mean, once people see it, they say, oh, this is a person that can do it. And they go
our good works are supposed to.
Right.
recommend us to people, you know.
Yeah, I think that's what it sounded like. I think I can't speak for Jenkins, but it sounded like that's where he was going. That's what Jesus was known for.
Okay,
And there's
yeah.
a difference.
That's what I was asking, if he could expand on it for us.
There's a difference between what you're known for and branding, because branding requires a little bit more of intentional effort. You should, because when you think about, let's say, Michael Jordan, since I brought that, you know, there was a lot of strategy that went into, well, obviously he was a great basketball player, but even with the deals that he got, I watched a little special, so I feel like I know a little stuff. So even with him acquiring the shoe deal with Nike, you know, mom was there. She was advocating, like, this is what we have to offer. You know, there's a lot of like going back and forth, and even the design, all that was real intentional marketing of this brand. So it wasn't just, oh, he's known to play great basketball and that's good, but because he was known to play great basketball, he could then capitalize on his merchandise. So taking that back to the ministry, is that something? And I'm not talking, because we can talk about what Marlena was talking about, if a pastor has another skill separate from ministry and they're marketing that. But to me, that's a little different than creating your brand as a pastor. And I'm not saying one is bad or good. I'm just saying the question is, though, should pastors have a personal brand as a pastor? And what does that look like? Go ahead, Keenan.
Right. Now, I was going to say, I can see it being problematic as a pastor if you have a quote unquote personal brand and you're pushing that to your church members to monetize off of that. That's when I have a problem. That's unethical to me, you know, because you have that relationship. These people are looking to you, and more than likely they'll go ahead and sign up, they'll pay for it because you have that type of influence over them. So that's when that's when it could go bad.
Like a conflict of interest kind of.
Absolutely.
But anybody else, as long as you're not in direct.
Say, look, I'm going to disfellowship you, and then you can buy my. But let me ask. I mean, and you know, for those who don't know, Keenan is a professional psychologist.
No, not therapist, licensed therapist.
A therapist.
OPC,
okay.
Licensed professional counselor.
Okay. I mean, but he has trained for it, and he has equipped himself to do it. I think that any human being should have the right to sell services that they have trained for. But the question I would ask is, as a minister, as a pastor, should a pastor then sell his services to congregants under the rubric of his pastoring?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's a dual relationship. So it's unethical. You know, as a therapist, they push that. You can't have that dual relationship.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, and the gospel is free, so we can't, you know, try it on the gospel in different ways. But I would agree with, you know, someone doing something on the side. But I wanted to ask this too: are there different concepts of branding? Remember, Tosh, when we go to CamCon, they tell you how to brand your church, right? How to, you know, really push a theme or something that your church has, and make sure you use these same colors so that when people see, you know, they know that it's Willow Grove, whatever, because you have a brand.
Yeah, you have an identity. Yeah. And I think I think the difference between that is when you're marketing a community of believers, you know, you're marketing connection. It's less self-focused or individual focused. It's more about an experience with Christ, an environment that allows you to foster, you know, growth in that direction. Whereas sometimes with personal branding of any kind, even if you're not a pastor, personal branding of any kind, ideally the focus is you. I mean, you're marketing yourself. I'm not saying don't promote yourself. I mean, but that's where it gets tricky for some people. It's like, are you promoting yourself or are you promoting ministry? And that's
you know, sometimes we look at people who have large platforms and large exposure, and we see that them as a person with a large branding, footprint, and everyone knows who they are. And some of those folks really did not build a brand. They're just known.
Right.
And a lot of people follow them and know about them. And so
can you give me an example of that, GP?
I mean, there may be a pastor who has 500,000 followers on TikTok or Instagram, and they're not necessarily known, but they have a lot of followers. And to those who follow them, I mean, they're watching their every move. They like their content. They enjoy being connected to this person with a brand, but they didn't spend time building their brand. They're just known and liked by a few people.
By the message. So people are drawn to their message.
I sense that when, I mean, I know a lot of people in ministry who have, I was approached years ago by somebody who wanted to help me start Nick Taliaferro Ministries. And you come up with a logo, and then there's a strategy in place, because there are always people who will benefit from your gifts, even if you don't intend to.
Well,
and so so now you got to hire somebody to write grants for you, to do your marketing and promotion, to manage your online presence. People think they're talking to you, and they're talking to Sister Fudd Pucker, who's answering your emails. And what happens is, a part of branding is similar to what Nebuchadnezzar does on the plains of Dura. My image now exceeds my essence, my person, and people are interacting with your image. And by image, I'm not trying to say that you're becoming idolatrous, but you can't relate to all of these people. You can't connect with all of these people, and the apostles got into the branding. And when the kids started coming up to Jesus and playing in his beard and jumping on his lap, the apostles said, listen, you're messing with our brand here. You can't be getting your little grubby behind children, slobbering all over the master. Get these kids out of here. And Jesus says, no, keep this thing at a personal contact level. And I'm just wondering, is it something we have to resist?
Okay, let's do this. There's some let's deal with the pros and cons.
Okay.
I think that'll help us kind of flesh this out. So
Keenan's a pro.
Yes, he is. Okay, one obvious pro about a pastor having a personal brand is that there's increased reach and influence, because if you're putting yourself out there, you're obviously able to amplify your message, and maybe more people other than those that attend your church can hear it, right? We agree that that's a good pro. All right. The other pro is authenticity and connection. So a lot of times people are drawn to pastors because they share their personal journey. I know, Marlena, you've done that. You share your personal story. You're vulnerable. The people, they feel like they can relate to you. Then it also can provide resource mobilization, which means it can help you raise awareness about different causes that, that is promoting ministry, right? Because you care about these things and people are following you, you can advance some of those causes. The other thing is leadership visibility. So you're more likely to be invited to speak different places. People might engage you to write a book or some other type of ministry, asset. And last pro we're going to talk about is building trust. So as a pastor, you can build trust with people, and over the time, with your consistency and everything else, you were seen as reliable and authentic. So those are some good. What do you guys think about those pros? Do you agree that those are some of the positive things that can come from a pastor building their brand?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I guess if you're saying that's what building a brand is, I just think that that's a matter of reputation and just.
But it still isn't that branding, though.
Yeah, but even with all those things, you have to be strategic about how that is presented sometimes, meaning.
Yeah, I mean, but and that's where I guess definitions come in. If we're talking about branding as having a reputation, I think all of us need to have a reputation. But if we're talking about branding as proprietary rights,
right,
to as they say, image and likeness,
name, image, and likeness. Yeah.
So name, image, and likeness, so that you can market it. Charles Richards asked, Pastor Charles Richards says, "Is the Adventist Church a brand?" It is.
Yes.
And we're very jealous about it. I mean, we will sue you if you use that name in a way that we don't like. I've known people who have been sued by it.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the question I would ask is, and I agree with the points that you make, being able to be a trusted source so that people will know that the Calvary Church is doing this and we trust them, so we know we can come to that. Or Shiloh Church is doing it, we know we can come. I get that. Having a reputation and a good name, as the Bible speaks. The question I have is when the image and your likeness and reputation becomes an item to itself, to the point that it becomes something that you market. And the marketing is the image and the likeness more than the gospel that is behind it.
No, that's good, because that's actually on the list of cons, potential for an ego and self-promotion. So then you start blurring the lines between, branding and then self-glorification, because, oh, wow, people are liking this. They like this. This is me. Then sometimes it can kind of get, it can kind of go to your head.
Latasha, you don't need that to deal with those
for
issues.
That to happen, right?
Yeah. That part was already there, and that just helped it bring it to the
amplify it, right?
Yeah.
I agree with Pastor Rodney. I think it is motivation and purpose. What's your purpose of doing that?
Right.
Because if it's all ministry and there's, no money requirement, then I think that that's a great thing, right? Because you want to really push that God is giving you to push. Ministry, branding, synonymous. But if it's so let's say, my story, Taj. I tell my story, and after the end of service, I'm going to say, "Hey, I got my book here for $25. Meet me right outside. $25, and the Sabbath, I give you $5 off. $5 off because of Sabbath, right?"
See how I used to gangbang? Yeah. Gangbang. Yeah. Marlena got a powerful testimony.
Marlena, you don't see that as a way for them to support your ministry?
Good point.
But my motivation. So if I'm a guest speaker someplace, and then at the end, it says, "Hey, if anyone would like, to learn further about the ministry, here it is."
At Sunset.
Mm-hmm. At Sunset, yes. Not selling on Sabbath. Then that is a way, but it is my purpose to really, share so that I can help others, or is my main purpose? Because somebody was trying to tell me, what you need to do? You need to write books and sell them. That's another way of income. So if that's my desire, just to get income, then I think that's cool.
I don't think there's anything wrong with getting income.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I don't see nothing wrong with getting.
Well, if for me, because some of us can be too money focused.
Yeah.
So prime example. Too money focused, right? I mean, you
tell us some more about it.
So I've been tested. But anyway, we're talking in the green room about that.
Yeah, I don't necessarily see a problem with well, no, before I put my opinion out there, do you all see a problem with monetizing your ministry?
Why
yes, I do.
Okay.
I see a potential problem with monetizing your ministry.
Yeah.
Let
me before I go to, so say if you have this niche that GP was talking about, this is what you're known for, right? And then you said, okay, I could package this and put it out for the large community and make money off of it. What is there an issue there? You got an issue with that?
Let me be clear. Monetizing your ministry means that the ministry now has a dedicated purpose, which is to make money. Right. That's what I mean by
outside of your church, though.
I don't care if it's in Mars. If the idea is I'm doing this so that I might make money, I think that perverts the purity of ministry. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong. Well, the Bible says that if the ox treads out the corn, you shouldn't muzzle it. That it is a matter of righteousness and fairness and equity. To allow, the Apostle Paul says, I can live by this ministry. It's acceptable for me to receive offerings for the ministry, but he's not monetizing his ministry. He's simply saying I am benefiting from the charity and the caring. And But when the purpose becomes, I am doing this so that I might make this, that's when I think it becomes problematic.
Yeah.
Right. And that's another one of the cons, because
it's a con, all right.
when the pastor markets themselves as the product.
I want to say hi to my friend, Pastor Dr. Patrick Graham.
Yeah, Damus have forsaken us.
He's big time. He's big time. Soon to be doctor.
That's right. We got a lot of doctors.
Everybody is a doctor now, except for me. I got to become one.
GP's a
I have
mess.
no shame in my game.
I love the podcast. Join me at my next master class. But no.
So wait. Is that does that cost, GP? Is that free?
That was free. I'm just helping other people who may be interested in podcasting.
But that's not his ministry. That's his expertise and.
Yeah, I like helping people.
Yeah. But
everybody likes helping people. We all like helping people.
Our ministry is helping people.
And think about it though.
Look, let me ask how this sounds to you. For example, somebody comes to Keenan. Keenan has a great evangelistic gift. I mean, that's just it comes through his pores. Yeah. And they say, we want to start Keenan Tyler Ministries. Keenan Tyler Ministries. KTM. You're listening to WKTM. I mean, it has a ring to it.
No, it don't. No,
okay, that's what I was going to ask you. Would you feel comfortable?
No way.
Why?
No.
Why though?
Why?
This is the ministry of Jesus Christ. It all points to Christ. So Keenan Tyler Ministry, that just sounds blasphemous, and that's just my personal opinion.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's that goes back to one of the cons, because sometimes and I know Rodney said this. Sometimes people can start off with the best intention, like, oh, this is a way to expand the ministry, and then all of a sudden, a few checks start rolling in. You're like, oh,
didn't that happen to Jim Jones?
I can make some money off of this.
No, he's just crazy.
Jim Jones started out innocently at first.
No, he was always dap silly crazy. I mean, he had real psychotic issues, but but the thing that normally happens, and I've seen this, I was formerly the director of faith-based initiatives for the city of Philadelphia. It happens so subtly, and that is, you start a ministry, it's very sincere. Let's change your
That's funny, Pat. That's funny.
You know how to change it. But it's okay. Let's say Keenan starts a ministry, how to change your community. People started coming. Somebody says, "Man, more people need to know about this," and they do. And they says, "But look, we'll get the word out for you." And they come up with a logo. Keenan Tyler, change your community. Looks good. People coming. They said, more people need to come. We need to make sure that we have folks to register and answer the phone. Before you know it, you got 8 people working for you. They depend on you. You can't stop now. And that's when it becomes, after a while, the tail starts wagging the dog on you.
But
I've seen it happen.
Yeah, please. I mean, share, help, enlighten us.
I mean, what happens is, now you got Aunt Harriet and Uncle Jim Bob, and they work for Keenan Tyler Ministries. You can't stop because you got people depending on you now.
Yeah. That was another. You're hitting all the cons, because that was another con. Undue pressure.
I know all about cons.
Yeah. So there's undue pressure with the people that work with you now, where this is their livelihood, and then maybe it's not even something. Maybe it becomes exhausting for you to keep this up, and people always want you to show up this way, and then
I still think it's a thin line, because if you have a ministry, in order to spread it, there's income that is needed. Primarily at church, we can't do anything if the offerings aren't coming in.
It's true.
Right? You want to do ministry, you can't do it. I can't get paid if the people are not returning a faithful tithe and offering, right? So I can't get paid. So I mean, monies are needed. So if you have a particular ministry, there has to be some sort of income. I go back. The motives have to be right. Your mind has to be right. Because to me, it's all a thin line.
I'm laughing at that. The person named D is so clever. They said KTM Keenan Tyler Ministry stands for keep the money. But I mean, think about it. But it's not simply your motives. Look at this passage of scripture. 1 Corinthians chapter 1. A big squabble came about in the cosmopolitan city of Corinth when Paul and Apollos, doing what they did for pure motives, found themselves in the middle of a conflict where people were saying, verse 12, 1 Corinthians chapter 1, one of you says, I follow Paul. Another says, I follow Apollos. Another says, I follow Cephas. And Paul said, we should all be following Christ. So it's not simply your motives. The people who surround you can create this aspect of branding because it gives them. I mean, how many of us know members who will almost get into fights about how their pastor is more spirit-filled than your pastor?
Oh, mercy. Is that a discussion that happens?
Oh, it happens all the time.
Ooh.
Yesterday, I'm in Pastor Ron Williams' office. That used to be my office back when I was young and the people still liked me. Before I told them, go find yourself something. You think you can do better, find somebody better. And they did. They got Ron. So, I'm in the office and a member comes in and starts telling me, you all right, but that Pastor Marlena, she is something else. And I'm serious. This is one of my former members telling me that when I grow up, I ought to want to be like Pastor Marlena.
He's lying.
He said it. He said it.
Wow.
I went out. I didn't drink because the Lord said, but I was so depressed.
Lying times two.
But people like brands. They like to identify, and they like to promote that which they identify with. Mm-hmm. Allegheny West will say Allegheny West is the best.
Yeah.
And Allegheny East says.
What do we say?
Yeah, what do we say, Tyler?
I think we the beast from the east. I'm not sure, but
oh my goodness.
But we say something.
I'm out of the east.
Yeah, but people like to brand. I mean, folks were out there in the freezing cold, cheering and shouting for the Philadelphia Eagles like they actually played the game, because people like to identify with a winning brand.
Mm-hmm. So let's look at this. Some questions people should ask themselves.
If you want to learn how to brand, see Tyler Farrell.
He knows all about conning. Remember?
Too cold.
I repeated your words.
I definitely want to make sure it's clear that we're not, or I'm not saying that I think it's wrong for a pastor to have a brand. I do think that it's a gray area, but if you do feel called in some way, I do think that there are some questions that you need to answer honestly about what you're trying to build. And I think we already touched on one of them. One is, what is my motivation? Because if your motivation is really ministry, then I definitely think that can be navigated. But if you suddenly feel like, wow, I really want to promote myself, and I even say that, and I struggle with this because I'm the type of person, I don't do self-promotion. Like, that's hard for me. Like, mm-hmm. I'm uncomfortable with compliments. That's how uncomfortable. Like,
really?
Yeah,
You're listening to a Tasha Hewitt production. Please continue.
There's another client for you, Dr. Tyler. You need to help.
He's like, meet
me in my office.
So I want to be sensitive to the fact that I know that that's not how I'm wired. So I don't want to say, because I'm wired that way, no, everyone else should be wired that way. That's why I want to kind of put that out there. But I do think if you're asking yourself, what is my motivation? Why am I doing this? And you really know that it's coming from an authentic place, and it's not, let me utilize this, mm-hmm. my popularity as a minister to now make money because I need to make money, and not because I really feel like this is something that's going to help people. And that's my ultimate goal. I feel like if that's not your motivation for doing it, I personally just don't think you.
I called to the fore our former colleague who has abandoned us, one Reverend Dr. Patrick Graham, who made mention in the chat that E. Cleveland did it, and when white Adventist pastors do it, no one complains. I would gently push back with the force of 8,000 bulls on steroids. That E. Cleveland did not do that. I mean, you identify, you let people know who you are, and but it wasn't promoting his brand. It was promoting the Christ that was a part of his brand, and as such, he wanted people to know who he was, so that they could have some familiarity. But he didn't promote his brand. And when white ministers do it, look, when Rod Parsley promotes himself, it sickens me sometimes. When what's the guy who waves his coat at you and makes you fall down? The guy, what's the guy's name?
The Indian guy?
No, he's actually Palestinian. He's actually Israeli. Long time, huh?
Is he in Florida?
I'm not sure where he is now, but white hair.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. He used to blow on people and wave at his jacket and people be falling down, and he's well known, extremely well.
Is it Benny?
Yeah. Benny Hinn.
Do that no
Thank
more.
you, Shelton. Thank you. You need a young mind in these things. I mean, Benny Hinn sickens me.
Elder Richardson.
Well, he doesn't do that no more. He repented of that.
Repented of that? Oh,
that's what he said. Yeah, that's what he said.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, he backed off of that. That's why you don't see him on TBN. He doesn't do that.
Okay.
All right. I'm glad you're still following him so that we could get that straight.
All right. So this is a question that Max.
We get all that anointing from Benny.
Asked. Does Doug Batchelor have a brand with amazing facts?
Independent ministry, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
He is known for amazing facts. Yes.
So
I don't think there's anything wrong with identifying,
Yeah. So that's what I was gonna say, because I think we have to be very clear with what, for instance, Rodney says billboards with your face on it is branding.
It's visibility.
Right. So, I mean, listen, most pastors have their faces on the flyers, when they're speaking, or for, even evangelistic series, you put who the evangelist.
There's nothing wrong with identifying for the sake of authenticity and letting people know. I mean, when those demons said, Paul we know and Jesus we know, it was a matter of identification. It's not like if this guy, Skeev, the son, if he had a better logo, the demons wouldn't have jumped on him. So it's nothing wrong with having an identity.
So where does it go? Where does it move into branding then?
When you're creating an image that allows you to have proprietary rights over your name, image, and likeness for the purpose of marketing, that's when I call it branding.
Establish that. Okay.
When that is the purpose. In other words, I own this ministry. I own this
to make money.
Yeah. I'll give you a good example. Let's say you preach a great sermon, Keenan or GP or Marlena, and somebody says, this sermon touched my heart. I want to put it on my website so that people can hear it. And you say, wait a minute, this is the proprietary right of KTM Ministries. And you can't put that on your website unless, I get a kickback from it.
Yeah,
that's what I mean by branding.
Yeah, that's wrong.
No, and Rodney says marketing is not bad.
No.
But when marketing becomes
fine line.
When it becomes, it's a matter of, is it the end or is it the means?
Right.
Am I doing this because this is how I'm going to make the money? Or am I doing this because this is how people are going to hear the gospel?
Right.
Somebody might say it's a little bit of both. I don't know.
Right. So the first question we were saying, what is my motivation? Second question, what is my goal? Because sometimes when we answer that question, if it's sure to make sure more people can learn about this particular thing or offer this service. But how would you measure success? Is it success measured by, the 1 or 2 people who are able to get the book and it changes their life, or if you have 100 sales and now you've made a certain amount of money. Like if it becomes more based on the monetary gain than your intent of it, being life changing, will it still be considered successful to you?
That's based off an individual, though, right? What they
Right.
consider success.
Right. And I think that helps you go back to what your real motivation is. I mean, and I think unless we're answering those questions honestly, we may need to think twice about if this is really something we should be doing. This is just my thought. And the third question, and this is something from an article I was reading, who will keep me accountable? Because we talked about starting off with the right mindset. You may even have people who are encouraging you. This is what you need to do. This is your gift, and and you talk to them. You share your passion with them. But then you start making a little money, and you don't always talk to that person anymore because they're going to reroute you, and you're on this trajectory that you kind of want to ride. And then before you know it, you're a mega star and the ministry is no longer what you intended it to be. So I think
that's a risk pass, Tosh, even as being a pastor. I mean, we could be at risk of that without branding.
That's true.
Yeah.
Marlena, you can be at risk.
Dr. Tyler, you're at risk.
I think all of us need to have good works that recommend us to others. And I think all of us need to let our light shine. Now the same Apostle Paul who says, look, my brand is Christ, and, you don't follow me, and all that. This is the same Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 9 who says, am I not an apostle? Have I not seen Jesus our Lord? Are you yourselves not my workmanship in the Lord? Even if I am not an apostle to others, surely I am to you, for you are the seal of my apostleship in the Lord. In other words, he's saying, I have things to recommend me and that I can promote as my, quote, brand. But the purpose is not so that he might own it or have proprietary rights over it. It's so that he might have an authoritative reputation for the work that God had commissioned him to do.
Yeah.
And Tyler, to be honest with you, technically speaking, when you're an employee of Allegheny East, technically speaking, like everything you do, realistically, it belongs to the church.
Yeah. I mean, unless you have your own subsidiary or your own, if you find a way to somehow or another create a 501c3 for yourself that allows you to say, I'm doing this on my own time. Yeah. What you do goes through the church,
and I have to say, one of the things I've always respected about pastors is I always felt like answering a calling like that one is to me one of the most humbling exercises of faith that someone can take because of the amount of sacrifice that you all undergo with I mean, why are you smiling? Oh, this one.
Looking at Patrick Graham's.
No, now I got to put it there for the people to see.
You got cheap words in it. Don't buy it. Don't buy it.
We can find something to market everybody.
I will get him for that.
But no, I just felt like
love that guy.
You're dedicating your life, and I'm not saying but you're dedicating your life to making sure people develop their relationship with God. To me, that's such a honorable vocation. And I just hate to see that become murky by desire for self-promotion and we know we've heard it, pastors don't make a whole lot of money, but I would hate for that desire to overshadow that original calling that led you to ministry in the first place. I mean, how do you feel
we only got a minute left because two of our guys, have some stuff to do. But
okay,
I think we, You know, and Tiffany said Marlene looks really cute. That's Marlene's brand. You know,
it's a brand.
It's her brand. But you know, and my brand is to look this way so that she looks even cuter. You see, but I just think that you have to be careful that your image does not exceed your essence, and that that the sense of proprietary rights do not outstrip your surrender to ministry. But Max and
what did BC say? I had to get permission.
To you first, you tell expressive permission. That's what BC is good. We just have to be careful and check in with each other, you know, and see, just like that. I mean, now, you know, Keenan's gone. KTM Ministries has started, just like that.
So, got some branding to do, I guess.
We got to roll.
Yeah, it is 7:00. But yeah, great discussion. I think it definitely gives people things to think about. I mean, you know, just something we've been seeing trending lately and thought we would, you know, have a discussion about it. Once again, definitely appreciate those who commented in the chat. We always love your engagement.
Yeah. Follow us at like, subscribe, and share.
$5 ahead.
And you know, I know we're about to Marlena, your hair's getting some
she has a coiffeur. All this time I thought she drove a Chrysler.
Yeah, we miss you too. Yeah, that's true. I like that. Charles Richards always say we must stay in a constant U-turn at the foot of the cross. Any temptation becomes possible if we lose sight of the cross. So yes, that's important. Thank you for that. Nice way to close out. But I was going to say, even as we close out, and you're going to see, like, even the upset merge, like, I never say anything about it. I'm the worst at promoting things, even though we literally use everything that we get to give back to other people. I just don't even like doing that. That's why you don't see me. You don't even see me talking about it anymore because it's difficult for me, even though I know, you know, what the funds go for. But Marlene is going to be branded.
Oh, she'll be Dr. Marlene.
3 bars.
Thank you,
right.
BC.
We already decided we're going to have an upset graduation party, so we'll let you guys know.
I'm not alone, BC. As many of us celebrate.
Yeah, we have
and for those who don't know, Ndebisi Nwade, better known as BC, is the new pastor of the North Philadelphia Church, and we welcome him to the Allegheny East Conference.
Amen. Shout out. All right, guys. Thank you so much for conversation.
Look at Tiffany's suggestion. One of our topics.
I didn't see that. Oh, our evangelistic meeting still relevant? Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Okay, noted. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yes.
All right, see you later, Susan.
But not like we did in the old days where we went out and acted like we were secret agents. And what church y'all from? Oh, we just children of God. And then about 3 weeks into the meeting, say, surprise! You're going to church on Saturday now.
Gotcha. Gotta have it in a different building.
You know, now we go out. People know who you are. You got to go out and be honest. And
so
there you go.
You're liking it.
Thanks,
all right,
everybody.
guys. Thanks so much. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here next Sunday, same time, same place. Have a great week.
Take care. This is the podcast ministries of KTM.
All right. Bye.